All right, I think we're ready.
I want to welcome you to our best practices session for our second annual CES conference. This session's set up in a Pecha Kucha format or Pecha Kacha. What you'll find is we're going to cover several different areas with different faculty members, and gives a great way in a small amount of time to be able to glean a lot of information. And so I want to encourage you to continue to ask your questions in the chat, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. Also, just remain muted so that we can hear from each of the faculty that are presenting. Up first, we have Dr. Rademacher and Dr. Klein.
Hi, everybody. My name is Linnea Rademacher, and my colleague is Janine Klein, and we are fairly new chairs here in the College of Doctoral Studies, and we're going to talk to you today about how we work with students to develop their information literacy skills.
Today, we want to recognize information literacy issues that we find with our learners and strategize ways to support them and create interventions to guide them toward proper use of research to support their work.
I'm sorry, I'm having computer problems, as is always the case, right? When we want to talk about these things. So you can see from these problems up here, we see them as chairs, and we're going to talk about those today.
And Linnea is going to role play as the professor, and I am going to be the student to illustrate these issues.
So information literacy, as we see it defined, is the ability to understand, use, and create new knowledge, leveraging past knowledge. And so a lot of master's and doctoral students learn about ethics, but they may not always learn about information literacy as defined by the Framework for Information Literacy in Higher Education.
Saunders et al. Assessed information literacy skills in graduate students and found that faculty assumed students had all the needed skills. The authors found, however, this was not the case.
Often I will see students as a dissertation chair who write a problem statement, and when I check their resources, I will find them supporting their assertions with information from the article's literature review, for example, and not the actual research findings. So let's see how this might play out between a professor and a student.
Oh, now I'm having problems. Linnea, do you want to switch?
Sure. So Janine, as the student would say in this study by Björk et al., the authors said, Kafer et al. Found that pet owners stress the importance of egalitarian relations with wild animals and that they prefer closer links to wild animals. So as the faculty, I might answer her, well, that sounds like it came from the beginning of the research article. Did they say that in their study results or in the literature review? And Janine would answer as the student, well, no, it's in the first sentence after the abstract. And so I would say, well, then that's part of the author's introduction to their topic and problem. What do they say after they've conducted their research? And Janine,
more research is needed on the motives and functions of acquiring and the keeping of pets during different developmental stages.
Okay, well, that sounds like great support for a research gap. Is this something you're interested in studying?
Maybe. So a quantitative study looking at correlating pet ownership, gender, age, and people's motives for acquiring pets.
Yes, great work. Great work. All right, so problem number 2, overquoting. When I see students' problem statements that are a string of quotations or using a string of quotations in their paper, a red flag goes up. And I wonder if they really understand what they're quoting. So here's an example between professor and student.
Hey, Doc, This author is saying exactly what I want to say, so I'm going to use the entire quote in my lit review.
Well, it's really great, Janine, that you found a helpful resource. But remember that quotations are taken out of context, and your reader doesn't have that context in order to get the meaning out of the full article that you got. So if you're going to quote, use quotes sparingly. If you quote, use the bookend approach. Set up that quotation with information, then use the quote, and then rephrase the quote and connect it to the meaning in your study.
Okay, but then what's paraphrasing?
Well, paraphrasing is another way to do it. And you think about why you like the quote. What did it say to you, and how would you explain it to your friend? Can you just say it like that and put a citation in parentheses at the end of the quote of the paraphrase, and that would more strongly support your argument.
So what you're saying is that when we paraphrase, we are explaining what we've read to someone who hasn't read it. Therefore, it's critical to provide both context and background to the reader to understand the author's point that you find critical to the topic.
Yes, exactly. So the last problem we will address is when students incorrectly make assertions based upon the limited research results of one study. Usually this is due to a lack of solid research skills. Listen again to professor and student.
Hey, Doc, so this researcher interviewed 10 employees about their perceptions on this new program. So can I say that people in the organization all believe this?
No, we can't say that. In qualitative research, we can't generalize like that. And sometimes in quantitative, we can't either. We need to look at the author's research design and their methods.
What do you mean?
Well, it's important to look at, for example, the amount of people that were included as participants and what exactly the authors were trying to explore. Then we can look at the methodology and design and the author's results to see what we can say and what we cannot say. And often authors will make implications from their research to the broader field, but also tell you what their limitations are.
So reteaching is the key. We can do that in our synchronous meetings with our learners and in our feedback. We can model and give examples also to help students learn these concepts.
Yes, and we also need to remember that not all students come to us with these skills, and we may need to reteach multiple times to support student scaffolding these concepts fully into their writing and their work.
Thank you, Dr. Rademacher and Dr. Klein. Next up, Dr. Selke is going to present on the alignment matrix.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mary Selke. This is my 5th year in the College of Doctoral Studies, and I'm currently assigned to SDA Team 5 as a dissertation chair. And the matrix that I'm sharing with you today is a tool that will help you coach and monitor the alignment of key components in doctoral dissertation research. It can be used to help a learner focus initial ideas for a study all the way through to dissertation completion. Alignment is easier to see, discuss, and revise with key components literally all on the same page. These components are phenomenon or variables, gap statement or problem space, and the theoretical base, research problem question purpose, method design, instruments or data sources, plus the population, target population, and sample. An alignment matrix is a valuable teaching tool. It's also helpful anytime that you spot inconsistencies across key components in a dissertation-related document. For example, when I'm assigned a new learner, I draft the first alignment matrix. This helps me learn the proposed study and provides a focus for our initial Zoom call. There are 4 main applications for this alignment matrix. The first is to teach the concept of alignment or strengthen working knowledge of alignment if that is needed. The second is to check alignment of key components at any point really in the writing process. The third is to track work in progress as alignment components are developed and revised. And the fourth is to affirm alignment prior to major reviews. If learners struggle with the concept of key component alignment, It sometimes is easier to start by identifying components in a journal article or an already completed dissertation first. That way the learners aren't too close to the components and they're not invested in that study that they're analyzing. I have developed a bank of alignment examples from my learners, with their permissions, of course, to show how alignment looks with different qualitative or quantitative topics and research designs. My learners have been very willing to share their matrices, even or sometimes maybe even especially if they struggled with alignment at first. And once alignment is understood, you can apply that concept to the learner's own study. As I mentioned before, I draft the first alignment matrix with the key components in the left column and my related notes or questions in the right side column. If the prospectus isn't complete, or if those initial components are just really not there yet or not aligned, focus on just the first few components. Do whatever works best for your learners and meets their needs. My learners maintain a working matrix throughout their dissertation journey with me. It is updated whenever any revision is made to a key component. Any potential domino effect on the other key components that way can be easily assessed. Again, it's all on one page. The development and refinement of key components can also be tracked across time by viewing those working matrices in sequence. The process of iterative feedback then often results in changes, of course, as the learners work through their drafts. And again, I require an updated alignment matrix prior to full committee review or prior to an AQR submission of a proposal or the full dissertation, just to make sure that that alignment remains intact and to make updates if key components have shifted maybe out of alignment as the document was revised. The cover page of the peer review ready submission document for AQR2 review requires an alignment table. Learners who have worked with the key component alignment matrix can easily copy and paste from their most recent matrix. They also won't run the risk of placing those components on one page for the first time and going, oh my God, these don't align. The new GCU dissertation templates for qualitative or quantitative dissertations also include an alignment matrix. Glad to see that. If the key components alignment matrix is introduced, though, in the very early phases of writing and dissertation planning, then that concept of alignment isn't going to be new, and the process of checking to make sure those key components are aligned is going to be routine prior to ever beginning work on an actual proposal. To summarize to this point, the matrix can be used to teach alignment, check alignment, track development of alignment, and affirm alignment prior to reviews. But does it really work? How would your students feel about using it? Let's go to the source. I invited my learners to contribute their thoughts on matrix use.
The alignment matrix is very helpful. I had completed both residencies and 6 weeks of RES 855 to learn I did not have a solid gap, study, or alignment. One of the first items Dr. Selke and I covered was the alignment matrix. It made everything finally come together. I know this is just the beginning, and I am better prepared for the academic journey ahead.
I struggled with alignment in both residencies. During the very first Zoom call with my chair, Dr. Selke used the matrix. This visual document, along with the discussion about my topic, enlightened my understanding. Every light bulb came on. Within the hour, we confirmed my key component alignment. I wish I'd had this document and the conversation with my chair during the second residency.
The alignment matrix frames a student's proposed research. In the multiple iterations of my study, I have found that the alignment matrix was a constant that assures my language meets my intent. The matrix provides a structured means of communicating as well as a point of reference.
Alignment is a word that is typically easy to understand, but when used in the context of taking on a new research project, it can become confusing or overwhelming. The alignment matrix bridges the gap between understanding what alignment is and how alignment works. It brings clarity by organizing key components in a way new learners can understand.
If you compare a dissertation to a tree, the 10-point document forms the trunk and supports the rest of the study. The proposal makes up the branches that the rest of the study ultimately blossoms from, and looking closely, you will notice at the bottom, firmly anchoring and supplying the life to the research, is the alignment matrix.
The matrix is straight to the point and clears muddled water. It shows students how to maintain alignment and avoid going off topic or diverging from answering the research questions as they are constructed. Keep it streamlined. Don't complicate the matrix or tinker with it too much. From an organizational standpoint, the alignment matrix was a lifesaver.
I used the alignment matrix throughout the entire process, including preparing for my defense. The framework assisted me in staying consistent. I would have liked to have had it sooner, maybe even before I started the 10 points. I noticed quite a few learners at the first residency struggling with alignment. I believe they would have benefited from the alignment matrix.
As a doctoral student who had never written a proposal, let alone a dissertation, the alignment matrix was invaluable. For any student, trying to make narratives flow consistently and logically throughout a study is a daunting enough task. The alignment matrix that Dr. Selke used was a tool that guided me through this entire journey. I will use this tool in all future research.
In conclusion, I would like to say special thanks to my learners for their insights and collaboration. We had fun with this. And aligning key research study components is essential to writing a high-quality dissertation. Use this versatile matrix with your learners to help you teach, check, track, and affirm alignment of the key components in their dissertation research. And I'm seeing a lot of questions popping up in the chat, and I hope we can get to them later. But if nothing else, my email is right here. Feel free to shoot me an email, and we can talk on email, or I'd be glad to, do a Zoom or phone call, and we can talk about this. And yes, I've got a set of materials that Curtis has that would be available, including a downloadable copy of the matrix.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Selke. I appreciate your work. And next, we are going to hear from Dr. Robinson Neal about hot topics.
Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Andre Robinson Neal, and I'll be talking to you today about hot topics in student research. The point of our time together today is to understand why a student might choose a hot topic for their project, why such topics are important to the lexicon of research, and how faculty can support students in ways that honor them and their work. So what is a hot topic and why is it hot? A hot topic could fall into several categories. The research participants may be part of a protected class, the student seeks to study something outside majority culture, or a combination of reasons. So why are hot topics important? Hot topic research often gives voice to traditionally marginalized communities and individuals. Novice researchers are sometimes guided away from certain subject matter for research, yet such topics are valuable and must be included in the literature. Hot topics are an elephant in the room. The students might be a member of the community they wish to study, are in kinship to that community, or want to use research as a way to be active or organized. If there is a lack of understanding about the value of research related to hot topic areas, such as when there's an intersection of ethnicity, gender identity, faith practice, or irreligious beliefs, economic status, or other so-called isms, things can become uncomfortable. A big elephant in the room for faculty is when they have a lack of knowledge about the general topic area. If a student is emotional about their topic, the elephant in the room might have gotten a bit bigger. And if both the faculty member and the student lack an understanding of how to take that elephant down one bite at a time, things can get even more uncomfortable. Researchers suggest that faculty should support intersectionality related topics. There's an indication in literature that the exploration of hot topics helps give a go to understanding historically asymmetrical power structures and brings to light the silencing of people groups. When faculty don't support the research, students often feel they aren't being supported personally. In the bigger scheme, not supporting the student co-opts the research and potentially reinforces marginalization of student and participant lives. When working with students, it's important to remember there are things that faculty just shouldn't say. IRB won't allow you to study that. I don't understand what you're trying to do. That topic is just too sensitive. Any one of those sentence starters by itself will make that elephant in the room grow into a woolly mammoth, and it will become very difficult to create or recreate a space of open communication and respect. But here's the thing. IRB doesn't halt or pass forward studies based on topic alone. The focus of IRB is on the safety of the researcher and participants and whether the research plan is feasible. Faculty members are generalists. They don't have to understand the topic to its core to know if the research plan is feasible, but if it's clearly supported by that appropriate literature in the student narrative. Just because the faculty member feels a topic is too sensitive doesn't mean it is. So what sort of questions make sense to ask so the elephant doesn't turn into a mammoth? In your own words, tell me about your topic. Where did it come from? Help me understand how your topic relates to your degree program. What kinds of programs might you ask, or what kinds of instruments will you need to get at these concepts? In other words, stick to the faculty expectations. Focus on alignment and feasibility. Here are some things that are important to remember. Allowing the student to talk about what inspired them in the first place helps build relationship or kinship. Help the student connect the topic to the literature and move on to the important stuff, like feasibility and doability. And remember, every student has an area of expertise. Avoiding the woolly mammoth of emotions and communication breakdown is about two things. The first is teamwork. Every effective academic community operates because of teamwork. Our purpose in the CDS is to support students who are people in context first. The second thing that keeps the elephant a manageable size is respect for the student and their experiences. Students in our program come from all walks of life and bring their professional and personal lives into this work. Faculty must recognize, acknowledge, and support them. Sure, it can be a scary and winding slope, right? But remember, it's the student's research. I once had a student who said he wasn't struggling to see the forest for the trees, but to just see one tree because of the tree bark. Faculty are here to serve students as guardrails or scaffolders, as we heard earlier, to support the student who is a novice researcher so their work doesn't fall into the abyss of misrepresentation and misalignment. So how do faculty support student research with respect for diversity that often accompanies hot topics? Stick to the big six of why, what, where, how, and when. Let them tell you why their topic is salient, confirm the what or the connection to literature, and ask the student how they plan to action their research. Have students identify who their who is, where they will access the participants from, and if their when or the timing of access and data collection makes sense. Be prepared to review and confirm that they're on track, affirm the student's understanding of the literature and research process, and work with them to address shortfalls or inconsistencies. So how do you get support? If you need to talk about a student's topic that relates to intersectionality, social location, or non-majority spaces, reach out to our CDS community, team leaders, fellow faculty members, or DC Network faculty spaces. So here's a very short list of terms that I used during this presentation that might not be familiar to everyone. Knowing these terms may help you have conversations with students that bring you into kinship with one another and can also build trust through that communication. And here is a short list of links and resources to help you think about positionality and intersectionality. When faculty come into kinship with students and recognize the burden of their experience in a real, human, and meaningful way, we also can learn to find comfort in the discomfort. And these resources will be available to you. I've sent them over to Curtis and Marlene, so you should be able to access those if you'd like to look at this short list of references and resources. And I thank you so much. And here again, who I am and where you can find me. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson-Neal. And I think Marlene might be able to drop that document of resources in the chat for you, but we'll make that available as well for you to be able to access. Next up, we have Dr. Bamba talking about meaningful communication.
Hello, my name is Dr. Priscilla Bamba, and today I'd like to talk to you about some best practices for online instruction with our learners here at GCU in the CDS program. As instructors, we're always looking for possibly deeper involvement with learners and to provide more effective communication with them. Here are the 3 practices that I would like to discuss with you: the art of effective listening, Zoom, and Loom. Okay, first with listening. Some of these suggestions by Celeste Headley, an accomplished journalist, author, and speaker, might seem obvious, but it never hurts to remind ourselves of 5 important parts of being a good listener. Do not multitask when listening to the learner. Number 2, use open-ended questions. Number 3, do not pontificate. 4, do not equate your experience with theirs, and listen with good intentions. And then moving on, you need to think about hearing versus listening. Hearing is simply taking in sound, it's passive, and it's a natural and automatic process, whereas listening is a learned process. It's active and includes paying attention and processing, remembering sensory data. Employing skills as a good listener and not merely a vessel by which information is delivered to students is crucial. Listening and looking for context clues is one of the best ways to begin. The clues are there when a learner's struggling or reaching out for help, much like a person who is drowning or lashing out. Perhaps all the person is really doing is asking for understanding and to be heard. Learning to find opportunities to connect with our learners and help them to learn themselves succeed is a learned behavior, almost an art form. And we also have a kinship to the attribution theory, in which there's a purported strong relationship between self-concept and achievement or lack thereof. Moving on to Zoom, since all chairs for dissertation learners here at GCU and the CDS have requirements involving Zoom, we're probably all quite familiar with Zoom. Additionally, since the COVID-19 pandemic began in March, we're probably all very much aware from the meetings we attend. We have to meet with each individual learner a minimum of 2 times per class via Zoom, and we have to get their permission to record Zoom calls. Zoom began in 2011 with the goal of enabling videos and web conferences to be smooth as possible. In 2016, the company's CEO, Eric Yuan, said a new office had opened in Denver, Colorado, to be centralized to the US and to take advantage of the technology growth happening there. I don't know about the rest of you, but I grew up reading comic books about superheroes, and The Flash was one of my favorites. So I love the movie that come out since then in the last decade or so. Well, the Flash's anti-hero on the TV show is Zoom. However, in our world of higher education, Zoom has redeemed himself and he's now our friend. In Zoom meetings especially, we can apply the previously discussed listening skills according to their description of themselves. Zoom unifies cloud conferencing, simple online meetings, and group messaging through computers and phones. Now moving on to Loom. Just like the wonderful relic from 1801 that changed the way the world makes cloth, the free recording tool known as Loom was released about midway through 2016. Regarding formative learning, when a professor provides feedback, written feedback can be accompanied by video feedback with the free tool such as Zoom, which seems to accommodate all styles of learning. While the written word is powerful on drafts and assignments, it by no means accommodates all learning styles, kinesthetic, auditory, or visual, like Loom does. And when a professor uses Loom feedback, it impacts the way to contact and engage learners. It helps them with figuring out our feedback much faster, as well as how and why to make changes on their work. I provide video feedback on each learner's draft, and I also send an accompanying Loom video. They watch the video and enjoy seeing me introduce their work. And they then love hearing about it and discussing it with them. They can discuss again. They see the track changes that I made, and they later receive the draft it's live action in Loom, and then when they receive the draft, they have memory recall to know what we meant. And like I said, Loom is a free tool that has a secure storage site, and the professor has control over whether or not to allow videos to be downloaded. If most videos are either instructional or feedback on individual writing, it's recommended that you select to allow downloading. And end of course student surveys have shown improvement for me, and the student success rates have also improved in classes in which I use Loom as a video tool. And I don't know if you saw in the last slide that went by, but that had my contact information. Thank you. Priscilla.bamba@gcu.edu if you have any questions or concerns about either of the two applications or discussing active learning anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bamba. I appreciate it. Our last presenter today is going to be Dr. Deagle, discussing engaging adult students and learners.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I see many familiar names from my SDA Team 3 here this evening. So thank you so much for joining. And I look forward to providing a re-spark or a new flair in revisiting Andragogy and practices in the virtual as well as face-to-face classroom networks. I guess, and here we go. So on the left there is Malcolm Knowles, and he is the godfather, right, of Andragogy, the art and science of how adults best learn, where we really look at using all parts of the brain, where we promote action in learning, where learners can see the information in their own context, but still provide those challenges. The colors there are the principles of Andragogy. We as teacher leaders should promote fun, active, problem-centered learning experiences and avoid that rote memorization. Connect emotions and always, always connect to past experiences for that relevancy piece in our learners. When we think about involving all parts of the brain, we need to give our adult learners choices. And we know many courses in CDS are very standardized, but we can still thread the passion of our students through and involve them somewhat in planning out papers and assessment where we can get at immediate relevancy. And by doing that, they'll be more internally motivated. We can level that playing field where power roles are diminished and everyone has a voice. Thus, safety is greater and deeper learning, hence more engagement when students aren't feeling intimidated and so on in that learning experience. But what gets it all going is Jack Meserow's work here in transformational learning. When really, if we want to spark those deep learning experiences, we have to put our students through positive and negative dilemmas, right? Challenge their previous ways of thinking and doing, and get them to really critically and deeply think about the content in front of them. And when we think of this, here in a schematic, that transition, what can we put forth in front of them that creates that introspective questioning regarding their previous stereotypes and biases and preconceived notion, which would have a direct impact on their new life, right? Or hence not necessarily life, but future actions. And what we all want in our learners are that paradigm where they can see themselves as the old and now the transitioned or change. As an interpretation to guide their future actions, to get them to rethink, reimagine, hence reinvent, and notice that a change has occurred in their attitudes and so on. And I love this schematic where we think of that filled up goldfish bowl where we surround ourselves with people who may look like us, act like us, have similar educational backgrounds or experiences in our classes. But because of transitions and changes, boom, we see our own new uniqueness and own new perspective to take things on, maybe on our own, which thus could create a PLC, a professional learning community, where our students can create new collaborations and connections, have a different critical lens, think outside and create that new and change way, all about mindset. But really, when we now think about our students' mindset, we can't not talk about motivation. There's an awesome quote from All I've adopted years ago about we as a teacher learner should never do what our learners can do or decide what our learners can decide. And think about how emotions are so impactful in all of this. If we're not empowering our learners and we're micromanaging them, wow, we're creating barriers. But hence, if we empower them, right, and create autonomy, we can create those communities through problem-based learning examples, concept-based learning examples, and really motivate our students to come together collectively and be embraced by their own uniquenesses. So regardless of your discipline, all of us work with adult learners in the CDS. I would encourage more wikis, Google Docs, where students have to meet shared goals and create equitable content to meet the learning outcomes for that assignment. Cognitive apprenticeships, where students learn a key skill they'd like to see in their professional life from someone else, virtual or face-to-face interviewing. But pause, stop, right? We cannot always go on to the next thing without creating time for that reflection. Provide relevancy, report out, apply, let students see how it's applicable to their real life experiences. We so much need that reflection time. But again, more examples here. Role playing, classroom debates where you assign your learners roles that they may not be entirely comfortable in. Provide productive reinforcement. We don't always need to be cheerleaders, but we need our students to see us go from point A to point B and hold them accountable to your policies and regulations. And with that being said, brush off the dirt, right? Put your shoulders back, modify, learn that it's okay that maybe it didn't work that great the first time. Costa and Kayla's work, manage, modify, and monitor. Keep that temperature gauge and that pulse going with your learners. This next slide, as I transition, I love the color. And I would challenge all of us to think about, do you have a plan for each of these colors in your courses? And one could argue, because of the pandemic, that orange color has never been more important for us to engage with very intently and intentionally in today's times. I love this picture. I thought it captured learning on a continuum in a really, really simplistic way. How do we start with that initial, pulse point and then look at the during, right? The growth, and learning on as a continuum as after, where back to that transformational piece. How do students come out after our course, right? Or after the degree program? But we truly are the teacher leader. We shepherd the process. We get our students moving, but please make sure you show that trust in your learners. They will trust you. Provide safety nets, opportunities to make mistakes. And I love this last picture. Do you provide reciprocity and reflection so students can see the big picture? You truly are there to empower them. And as we say in CDS all the time, our learners are driving the bus, right? We're the sage on the stage. We are the people behind the scenes, getting them over that mountain. Be their advocate. Push them beyond something greater, than themselves. They will get there, and hence to graduation. So thank you for the opportunity. I provided some fall pictures here from Michigan. And I also earlier in the year created an on-demand workshop, which of course provided much more words and content, unlike this style. But thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Deagle, and I appreciate all of the faculty that presented. I know that was a lot of information, and we were excited to share that with you. But I do want to take a couple minutes and see if there are any questions. If we can just take a couple minutes here that we have.
And in the chat so far, there aren't any questions that haven't been answered yet. So anyone feel free to share any questions you have. I did include the link for attendance and also to share your feedback on the session so far in the conference. So any questions for our 5 or 6 presenters?
Curtis, this is Mary. There were a couple folks that asked about materials from everybody's presentation being available afterwards. Do you want to mention that? And I know some of us put in some virtual handouts that can go to people. Like, if you want my matrix, it's in there.
Yeah, that's excellent. We're going to definitely make those available, and we've recorded this session as well for people to be able to access again. And so definitely we want to be able to utilize those resources, and especially that extra content. We want to make sure people have access